And namaste and welcome, Ustad Alam Khan Sahib.
Oh
You look
my.
more like a cool sarod cat, so I think
No,
I'm going to
no,
call
no
you
ustad,
Alam.
no ustad, no
I'm going to call
ustad.
you Alam.
That's completely fine. Thank you, Saraswati.
Yeah.
Nice to see you
So
and talk with you today.
yeah, so good to have you here, and I think all the listeners are really looking forward to hearing about your art and your artistic journey and where you're taking it from here. So we're really excited.
Me too.
So diving straight in, um, for the listeners, you may want to know that Alam Khan he belongs to the illustrious lineage of Baba Alauddin Khan and Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, who's his father. So some of you probably might have had time to go over the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music video. If not, we just wanted to talk a little bit about the college. Maybe Alam, you can tell us about Ali Akbar College of Music. It was, in fact, probably the first premier institution to be established exclusively for Hindustani classical music, which is a northern Indian style of music, up in California. So,
Yeah.
what do you think inspired your father to move to the West and actually start sharing the classical music culture with the rest of the world? And maybe you can also talk a little bit about some of the illustrious students that learned from him. Maybe you can start there.
Sure, sure. Well, okay, so my father came to the States in 1953 and recorded the first LP of Indian classical music, North Indian classical music. And in and then he had was going back and forth from Europe, the U.S., India, and in '67 the Ali Akbar College was established, and it
Wow.
was in it was in Berkeley at the time. He was teaching as part of the Asia Society, not Asia Society, Society for Eastern Arts or something of that name. I forget what it is exactly, but Bala Saraswati
Yeah.
and
Famous
different
dance.
people, very much, yeah, and different musicians. I think her and I don't know if any musicians were there, but he was invited to participate in teaching as part of a program of Indian arts. And what
Oh,
happened was there was interest, and he then was teaching, and he went back to India, and then came back, and Shankar Ghosh was him with him, the tabla maestro, Pandit
yeah.
Shankar Ghosh, and they had some students, and they were teaching, and then basically what happened was the '60s boom of Woodstock and Pandit Ravi Shankar and all of that was going on. So it went from a certain amount of students and people knowing about Indian music to then Indian music being put on the you know
Global
the
Fest. Yeah.
yeah the main stage commercial thing with pop culture and the sitar and Ravi Shankar and the Beatles. So then all of
Yeah.
a sudden there was 100 students trying to come, and then like that it kept on happening, and then he ended up deciding that it was easier for him to um, come and stay for a large part of the year in the States than find housing and take care of all of these students in India. And they established a nonprofit with a board, and basically got funding to create the college, our music school, and then people like the Grateful Dead and all these different musicians and Carlos Santana and all these different kinds of musicians were around the school. They were doing benefits. My father was playing benefits, and then basically what started out as a we don't know how this will go kind of thing. Year after year, they found that their funds were there, and the students were there, and the wish to learn was there, and so my father just kept teaching. And
That's great.
yeah, and basically, what was very special about that was he lived a great chunk of his life in India, obviously, concertizing musician, a very famous one. But coming to the States, he got to start a different chapter of his life, which was focused on leaving behind a legacy of teaching. I'd say unparalleled. I don't think there's anybody else that has left behind the amount of material that he has, which is now housed in our Ali Akbar Khan library, which took 15 years to make. There's 40 years of material there.
Wow.
If you push play
I
on
can
our
imagine.
player, if you push play and leave for a year and come back, he will still be teaching. The audio will still be going.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
So
It,
it's like having Bach, you know, or Beethoven or Mozart. Bach was a very prolific composer. To have a database of someone of that stature, of so much of their teaching of 40 years is incredible. First off, it will survive time, meaning that generations that aren't born yet will have a chance to go straight to the source to learn from him and
yeah.
figure out and piece together whatever way the music will, you know, go or evolve into. And and he found that he could teach in a different way. He could be a side of himself. He could show that not necessarily he would have in India. He could interact with the people in a different way. These young,
Correct.
you know,
Yeah.
American students, a melting pot, and they were very talented, and they would go right along with what he was teaching. They learned fast, they worked hard, and he was
Mhm.
able to just give all of this material to everybody,
Wonderful.
and they would be there with him, you know, whether they were playing it perfectly or not, you know, whatever, but they were writing it, recording it, playing it, and he was just able to give. And
That's very
so
shows the magnanimity of his heart,
so
to share what
it,
he knew, whatever he
it
learned
was
from his illustrious father. It's wonderful.
it was
And
pretty
then,
much a very powerful, potent time because it'll never happen again. All these people gravitating to one another and creating this culture, and also the Indian culture explosion in the United
absolutely.
States, along with my father, you know, planting here in Marin County in California. That's not to say that there was a branch of Ali Akbar College in Calcutta. But the thing that happened with that was, I think, due to government funding and stuff like that. My father never really felt that these kind of groups or institutions and the school was properly supported. So he
Mhm.
found that here in the States. So that's another aspect to that. So,
Ah,
you know, it's not just his life ended when he came to the U.S., which a lot of Indians say he was all of that, and then he went to the U.S. But then he lived more time in the U.S. I'm a product of him coming to the U.S. I wouldn't be alive if he hadn't. So there's a lot to tell. I'm doing a series on that right now as well, the history of that. So that's why that question always excites me. But I'll go. Well, let's go on with something else before I go too far
but
down
that,
that.
no, that was great. Thanks for sharing all of that information firsthand, because otherwise we wouldn't know about all this. This is
Hmm.
great. Uh, Now you were talking about the teaching style and everything else. I understand in back in India at those times it was like very rigorous. They would get up probably at 4 and then keep practicing and practicing and then help the guru or the teacher who imparts knowledge through with their activities during the day. And so that's a different type of teaching versus what you were talking about right here. It's more casual, informal, but the content of the teaching doesn't change. It just the way it's taught changes. So with that kind of background, Alam, how was it for you with that, being surrounded by music 24/7 with all of that illustrious lineage? And how was it to be brought up in that atmosphere? Was there a lot of pressure? I know it's great to be born in that family, but I'm sure there might have been some pressure. So is there something that you would like to share about your upbringing and at what point you thought, hey, I'm going to pick up this road and that's going to be my life?
Yeah. Being a child of a legendary figure like that, a godlike figure, especially in India, musically, is intense, and it's a blessing, and it also has some very real challenges, as you were saying. So I was blessed to be around the music, all kinds of musicians, incredible musicians. It was just a part of my life. I didn't think of it as anything as being like, oh my gosh. It wasn't until later on when I could analyze and look at it from a point of view of an outsider and someone not brought up in that, how special it was, and also how intense it was, and how pressure, how much pressure there was. I was playing music always since I was a child. My father had me doing vocal music, and then I started sarod when I was 7. I'm now 37,
Yeah.
actually almost 38 this month. So basically, I would play here and there, but never really. um, rigorous. I was really into American music and other things like that, and my mother and father got me electric guitar, and I learned to play that
That's
for a
nice.
while. And so I think they wanted me to play music, but and hoping maybe I would pick up more sarod, but they never forced me. They did other things like guitar and stuff like that to keep me going musically and be interested. And then when I was a teenager, I started to play again, and that time it really clicked.
Wow.
And I I would basically my mother she was a tabla player. She is a tabla player. She studied with
Oh,
Ustad Alaraka, which is Zakir Hussein's father,
father.
Ustad
Wow.
Zakir Hussein. She learned from him for 20 years and lived in the Guru Shishya style, where she would take care and help him and all the things like you're talking about that all the Indian people will know that relationship.
Mhm.
Very close with the teacher and always studying. But she, at that time, she said, "Hey, I want to learn sarod too. So hey, Alam, why don't you pick it up and let's do it together." As a mom, she was tricking me. I didn't realize this
Yeah,
till much later because
I
I'm,
just wanted you to
I'm a
learn.
kid. So then I was doing it, and then that time I was getting stuff a lot faster because I had already learned before in the past and put it down and picking it up and yeah. And then this time I just was going, and my mom was, she was kind of playing around and trying to learn for a bit. And then she finally was just like, okay, I'm done.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
I just kept going. So she was just, and then later I'm like, hey mom, did you do that on purpose? Years later, because I thought she really wanted to learn sarod, and maybe part of it she did, but she's like, I was trying to get you to play.
Yeah.
So at that point, I started to hear something in the music. I started listening to my father's recordings, um, and I heard it in a different way. It clicked. It felt like an old friend, I always say, and it haunted me in a
Mm.
pleasant way, not a negative way. But I was constantly feeling in this music and thinking about it, and it was taking me to depths that other music forms that I was currently listening to were taking me. But then it was going beyond that into a different space, and it was like I finally heard what I was listening to all those years, or
That's
something like
wonderful.
that. And then I never stopped, and it just kept getting more serious, and my training more serious. And I was probably around 13 or 12 at the time, and then was going on tour with my father at 14, and on Tanpura and accompanying him, and then Sarod accompaniment, and then soloing as a Sarodist by 16 or something, 17,
That's
something
great.
like that, and now I'm 37. So that's kind of how I got
It all
started.
started. That's
Yeah, that's how I
wonderful.
kind of yeah.
So thanks to your mom. Fantastic. She's
Moms are
the
pretty
right thing.
smart. Moms are
Yeah.
pretty smart.
So, speaking of the instrument that you play, a lot of us would like to see your instrument. We want to hear how
Sure,
it sounds. Do you mind sharing
of course.
us?
So this is my instrument. It's called the sarod, spelled Sarod or Sarode. If my father put the E on the end of it because people were saying sarad, so we put the E. But sarod is just Sarod traditionally. There's 25 strings. Um, it's got goat skin here on the head. It's not vegetarian instrument, I always say, unfortunately, but the animal, it's for a good cause. So the animal is making a lot of people happy with the skin being placed there. Sitar is all wood in comparison. This instrument, what's different between this and the sitar, which many people know the sitar, is that um, the sitar is fretted and you pull on the strings. Yeah. Of course, you know this, but I'm explaining to some people that
Oh
might
yeah, yeah,
not.
yes,
Uh,
please. Good listener.
you pull the frets, and that's how you get the sound. And a lot of people used to think, because George Harrison and studied with Ravi Shankar, that it's easy and it's like guitar. Yeah, it's like that when you just play dunk, 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 dunk. But what makes Indian music beautiful is the single melodic phrasing and the notes between the notes, the ornamental aspect of the thing. So guitar goes way past the normal frettedness of guitar and chords to pulling. And so in comparison, the sarod is you slide. So in my
Hmm.
opinion, sarod is actually more like a guitar because you're playing it like this. It's also like a violin,
Hmm.
different bowed instruments, and you use a bit of your nail and the pad of your finger to create the sound. What is also unique about it is that a lot of the strings are resonating strings, which we call tarab strings or sympathetic strings. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives the beauty of the resonance of the instrument. And there's different versions of sarod. This version that we play is my grandfather modified it to be what
Wow,
it is sonically today, and that's
it
Ali
sounds
Akbar Khan style sarod, basically from my Gharana. So you have four main playing strings, and then you have jakari, which are rhythmic strings, and then you have resonating
ah,
resonating strings. So it's a very difficult instrument to play.
I can tell.
I'm still learning, of course. You know how this is being a musician.
Yeah.
And one other aspect is that on sitar you put a kind of a little bit of a
The
cage thing around your finger and the mizrab, and on your finger when you pluck like this. On sarod we use something called a jaba, and it's a coconut shell that's been
oh,
sanded down, and that is
that's
what we use for
beautiful.
picking.
Sure.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
very
my instrument, the
similar.
sarod.
That's beautiful. So when you spoke about the Maihar Gharana, so for the listeners, I just want to say a Gharana is sort of a style or a school of playing. They have their own unique interpretations, creative interpretations. They have their own bandishes, they have their own compositions, and sometimes they also have their own invented ragas, which the Maihar Gharana founder Alauddin Khan and Ali Akbar Khan, they are famous for a lot of ragas, some of which are played extensively in the concert platforms, right? Like Maj Kamach is one of those.
Yes, manch kamaj is like one of those.
So, and then I just wanted to ask you if there was anything you wanted to play or if there was a video that you would like to share of the traditional ragas, anything that you would like, or
Yeah.
like a
Um,
coffee or
well, I can
I
play
leave that up
something
to you.
for you. Yeah, I can play
Oh,
something for you. Let's
that's
see.
great.
If I'm gonna do a raga that's of the Gharana, I have to change my tuning a little bit. That's okay.
Did I just ask you for something too much? I was just so excited.
Oh, no problem. It'll sound better than the video anyway.
Sounds wonderful. The ambiance,
So,
ambiance, warm.
so I'll basically play something that is just a little bit of a raga that is meant for nighttime and late night. And so it's obviously not late night here, but it's becoming
That's
evening where
fine.
you are, so it's a little more close. Um,
Yep.
the difference, one of the big differences between the Carnatic and North Indian system is the time of day of the ragas, and my family's very strict about that. So I always grew up having to practice, listen, and play only at that time of day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this will be watched at other times as well. So I'll just go ahead and play it. So the raga I'm going to
That'd
play
be
is called Chandranandan. Chandranandan is my father's creation. It's arguably his most famous creation, um, which is associated with the moon, Chandra. So it's like the raga for the moon, something like that.
that's
And
beautiful.
I'll play just briefly some alap without the drums because there's no tabla player with me here, obviously.
It's gonna be
course, headphones will be better to listen on, but one second, let me grab some. Yeah.
I don't want to talk now, really.
You
It
know,
was just
it's a little.
so
It,
beautiful.
it's
It
hard
was,
to it's hard to play in that in the jump into a raga that is that difficult to play. So I'm not doing it justice, but there's a little bit of the sound of sarod.
that was beautiful. No, it was so good. I was like in a trance. I was enjoying it. Thank you so much for presenting a rare raga like Chandra Nandan from your Gharana. And then,
It's more like Sandra Nandan right now, right? Because
no, actually, no, it's interesting you're mentioning that way, but to me, it put us in a sort of a relaxing mood more towards the evening. I was imagining myself in a full moon night next in a beach, very calm, very beautiful. So it's essentially the
thank you.
raga takes you to that time. That's how I
True.
look at it.
Yes.
It was beautiful,
Yes.
and thanks for foraying into that, especially when it has both the notes, both the gas, and I loved how you treated it. Your creative interpretation was just beautiful.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Yeah,
you.
I would like to do better justice to it, but if some of it was okay, then thank you. I appreciate it. If some of it
Fantastic.
was okay, I hope you enjoyed it. You know,
So,
um,
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that that's great. So for the listeners, that's one of the special ragas of the Gharana, and the way Alam treated the raga is how you can tell that it's from the Maihar Gharana, because a lot of it was you could tell that it follows a lot of vocalization, and then there's a lot of emotiveness to the raga itself, and so you're taken to a different world. So he kind of blends both the emotive aspect and the technical aspects beautifully. So they're both in sync, and that's why we're able to. And then he gets into it really, and so we are able to experience that spirit of the Maihar Gharana. So thank you. So
Thank you.
that's for the listeners. And so it's interesting. So now you have now we talk about the ragas and the Gharana and your lineage and all that, but it's really good to know that you have actually created your own niche um, in and then you have in addition to embracing the tradition of Maihar Gharana, you have kind of forayed into some contemporary music, yet just using all the raga concepts into that sort of. So it's I love listening to some of your music. The passage especially was like you were just using some simple notes, repetitive notes. It was 5/5 and 7/7, and
Yeah,
then there was just like a cello going in the back.
yeah.
It was beautiful. I thought that was
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
would you like to talk a little bit about your artistic journey from
Sure.
where you kind of blend both these and kind of arrive at your own artistry? That'd be we would
Sure.
love.
Yeah.
If you have any videos to share after you talk, we would love to see that too.
Sure, we can show the one that you were talking about passage. It actually would it actually relates because it's very similar to Chandra Nandan and Koshi Kanra scale. There's elements of those ragas put into this piece. So yeah, I mean, um, it's a big subject matter when people talk about pushing classical music, a traditional form, forward. Um, People like to use words like evolution of the music and things like that. The issue that I have with it is that at what point does it stop becoming traditional and classical and becoming something else and losing where its origins and where it came from? And I'm all for progressiveness and moving away from things that don't serve. But Indian music, the tradition of it, it does serve, and there's a power there that is like nature. It's like the power of creation and earth. There's something so profound about the power in that music when rendered in the right hands or the right voice or so for me, people like to come up with ragas and compose them, and my father, people like this, masters before him, that generation, sure. But they say there's up to 75,000 ragas in existence or something like that. So no matter what you create, it's probably going to be very close to something else, if not something else. So that aside, only real masters that have spent a long time and have a great understanding of all the ragas, or at least enough to know what to do and not to do, they can create things like that. That's not to say that I never will or never try to, but it hasn't interested me. What's interested me more is making contemporary music and bringing my sarod out of pure classical into the realm of music, with the different influences that I've had in my life, and not be stuck trying to create new ragas and stuff like that. I feel like in a way that is creating a new raga, by creating new art that is original, art that has integrity, and is not just for the sake of doing it, but you're really
Exactly.
trying to create something different. Um,
Absolutely.
like, here, I'm gonna get a conga player and a guitar player and a bass player, and we'll create a world music group. I think that that's not doesn't interest me more as something that feels very um,
It's more intentional
important.
for doing
Yeah,
it.
yes, and it's something that's important to your journey. Not
Exactly.
that, okay, this year I have this project. Next year I'm just going to do this project for this year. Then I'm going to get another project and then another. We'll just get that guy and he plays that and we'll get that. That doesn't interest me.
I hear
So
you.
what? Yeah. So for me, I really want is to create something that speaks to my unique identity, and I have done some contemporary stuff. My EP vignettes came out a couple of years ago, which we'll play some stuff off of. I have a group called Grand Tapestry, which is with a hip hop artist, that is a huge hip
That's
hop
lovely.
artist in his world, and I grew up listening to him. Actually, he's only a couple of years older than me, but I've been listening to him for many, many, many years.
Oh,
Extremely
that's
talented
lovely.
artist, taking the real authentic form of independent um, hip
Music.
hop music, emceeing, lyricism, and then my authentic classical form. And I also produced for many years, so I know how to make that style of music, of beats and things like that. So production wise, I lended that
That
understanding
half of
to
your
bringing my sorod into it. And we created something that does not sound like, oh, there's an Indian classical musician playing with a rapper. Like that. That is not interesting at all. It's like Bollywood fluff. It's not interesting at all. What we created is a whole nother genre of music, really.
Yep,
And
I
it's going to
understand what
take
you're
time.
saying. Yeah.
It's
I
going to
understand
take
what you're
time
saying.
for people to get
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's going to take
Like
time for people to understand because hip hop's a young form, and Indian classical is very old. So, but it's really about combining these things in a way that's very interesting and creates something that's authentic in itself, even though it's original. It's got to have that stamp of being like, this is something to cite. This is a reference for people. This is legitimate. This has integrity. This is powerful. At least
absolutely.
that's what I'm trying to do. Maybe people hate it. I don't know, but that's what I'm
No,
trying to
no,
do.
it's great. No, it's very important that you're mentioning it because there is a lot of, mumbo jumbo. They just put a bunch of instruments together and then people just keep playing independently. But what you're talking about, I completely understand because I also try to foray into that.
Mm.
Um, I have my band similar to what you're saying. So we try to sit down and create, identify common elements, and at the same time, keep our roots intact. And then with all of that together, it kind of takes on a different color. So we are kind of weaving a different tapestry altogether while keeping our roots intact. So it
Yeah.
takes work, it takes a lot of intent, and
Hmm.
then so it takes some time, and then it takes a lot of it kind of takes a different shape and color. And so when it
Yeah.
comes out, people, you can see that when people enjoy it, you know that you have rebirthed something. That's your
Yeah,
product.
definitely. Yeah,
So I relate.
growing up with my mother, who's a Caucasian, I'm born up American. I'm half Indian and half, so I'm mixed race, and it's always thrown a whole nother element into my upbringing between, traditional Indian. My father was a man of the world, though, and he also was not just like, but he was also born in 1922, so he had that whole thing attached. And then he also was very worldly because he lived so long in the United States and so
Yep.
many. He's a musician and all that stuff. But um, the music I listened to was all across the board. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Can
important
tell.
to me to find my unique identity and create
Mhm.
from that place. And for years I didn't want to mix classical with anything else. I was a purist, and then I realized that I was cutting off a whole side of creativity of myself that
Exactly.
not that you can't push the limits with Indian classical and you can come up with new ways of doing it. And I think my father's generation really pushed that forward. And anything more that happens, it's harder to do without having it become gimmicky. So I like
Mhm.
to do
Mhm.
contemporary projects and different kinds of music where I can bring that side of myself, engage in that unique thing. I have numerous projects going on, and one that we're creating right now. It's we were supposed to debut it actually this month, and unfortunately we can't because of everything that's going on. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Between Worlds of Sound, and Between Worlds of Sound is really about being and creating from a space that's from both sides, but finding that you're not just in between, but you're creating. There's a world what you're creating from between those spaces. Yeah. So how about I play some of play a piece? I'll play the passage piece, which is more on the minimal style musically. I like minimal music as well. And it kind of inspired this in a way that style. It's sarod. My student Nazan Akhtas is playing cello on this, and Nilan Chaudhry, who is the son of Pandit Chapan Chaudhry, is playing tabla on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I composed this piece. And you guys want to? Should I play that?
Sure. And then maybe after that, if you have any clip of Grand Tapestry, also we
Oh
would
yeah,
love
Grand
to.
Tapestry, the rap project. Yeah, sure. I'll play some of that. Let's listen to some music. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to do this. I'm going to bear with me for a second.
Sure.
Share
Oh, when you're trying to
screen.
do that, I'm just gonna say for those listeners that just tuned in, we are talking to Alam Khan, uh, the wonderful sarod player. Alam Khan has his own website, alamkhan.com. So he's on Facebook, he's on Instagram. So please like and share, and also subscribe to his YouTube channel. Um, and
Yeah, thank you very
if you
much.
would, yeah, of course. And if you need any information or would like to take lessons from him, you could write to info@alamkhan.com.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to mute
And then we
myself so you
advise
can.
self. I think Alam was recommending headphones to listen to this music.
Oh,
So if you
yes,
have
this
headphones
will
on,
sound
please do.
much better if you listen on headphones, definitely. So I encourage that. Otherwise, if you go back and watch it again, then headphones the second time around. So here we go. Hopefully, you all can hear this. I'm going to mute myself now.
That was lovely.
Thank you very much. You could
Yeah,
hear it okay, I'm assuming?
it was fantastic. So
Excellent.
yeah, that
Um,
was great.
so let me just see. I'm trying to. Okay, there we go. Uh, I'm just going to grab some. I'm going to grab something else. So this now we're going to go into. Not that. One second. Okay. So this one is my group Grand Tapestry. This is from our first album. We're going to release our new album very soon, and this is a mixture of this is a section called Sawal Jawab, which is call and response, which is in Indian music done quite a bit and our Gharana a lot. And I've had the idea of this is the very first song we ever did together as a group. We have a full album under Grand Tapestry. It's in the playlist, the mix that I sent to World Music Institute. But basically, this is going off of that concept of call and response, and there's no electronics and no beats. We have other songs that have that as well, but this is the initial one that sparked the entire project. So here we go. Grand Tapestry, the song is called Atma.
Great.
Mute myself. There we go.
Come from the center of the chest to bless the world. Heartbeat battling and making a bed to curl up. Consequence to never dance is this. You gotta move the spirit to get the people to near it. I fear it not. Never been afraid the personality is brave. You can never catch me or put me in a cave. I will never be the one to bury in the grave. Put me in a rocket ship and put me into space. Music is the way to God. I would like to think I'm odd. Heady like a nigga ride. I'm a thinker man, I think a lot. Many, many, many men pass away in innocence. Not really making any sense. But these are the main events. I will not run away. I can be anything. Manifest pathways. Walk along. Make it rain. Never been one to incorporate things that don't mesh. Mother Earth knows this. No close this business in my family vicinity. I keep it in focus. Trinity, divinity, eliminating always all tasteless hatred, vacate. No resentment in the tenements of the soul cavity I carry out in the basement. Experimental, external, infernal, internal minerals and a through ear grab. Fear mongering, wandering, parasites drown in the sound washed up on the shoreline. You're mine, my mind, one shoreline, one core line, reaching to the heavens up. Universal Valentine, one heart, one love, one tongue, one intellect's insight. God is a God body with the God hand, reaching out like the Godfather with the broadband. All time, space, all land, all mankind, all landlines, rigging at the same pitch, digging in the same ditch while we cling to our pain pictures and remain sick, tainted. Paint this on the walls of the brain cells that you got left after taxation, anxiety and chemical abrasion. This melody, the enemy of all cavemen, dwelling in the dark. We the spelling on the back of the ark. This art will attract light, like breath to a bagpipe, battery to a mag light. Buckle down, hold tight, ride of a lifetime, line after line, rhyme after rhyme, sign that the time is now upon us, not upon or a parlor. We the kings and the callers, we the queens and the ballers. We the screenplay and holler. In my direction with solace, meditative and hollow, filled with universe calm.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. So I just wanted to Well, that should make you subscribe to his music channel. That was fantastic.
Oops.
So
Let me make
Alam
sure I
Khan,
can turn
yeah.
this
So
off. 1 second.
that's fine.
Lovely YouTube commercials. Okay, 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, great. So again, we are in conversation with Alam Khan. We have a few minutes left here for Q&A. I just wanted folks to put their questions out there so we can actually pose those to Alam. And once again, alamkhan.com for more information, alamkhan.com. So Alam has a Facebook handle and Instagram handle. Do you have Twitter, Alam?
I do, yeah. I think for Instagram, Twitter, my handle is Alam Sarod. It's AlamSarode. Alam Sarod is my handle on Instagram and Twitter, and Alam Khan. I'm on Facebook and all that stuff too, and
That's
YouTube.
great.
My channel is there. Yeah, and the Ali Akbar College is another thing. So our website is aacm.org. That's aacm.org, or you can just Google Ali Akbar College of Music for classes. I think there's a video that World Music Institute put up, which is a kind of a glimpse into our world and what we do over there, and where I teach and all that as well. So
That's great. So this, I think we have about maybe 10 minutes,
sure.
10 or so. So we can actually go with the questions, but if you have 30 seconds, I just wanted people to know, you know, when Alam played that. So when he played that, that was like in the Ragam Karahara Priya, and then so that kind of sound. So I just wanted to bring a Carnatic sound to what he was playing. So that was just in a quick 30 seconds.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, no, I mean, I wish we had more time. We could hear your music as well and talk about all that. So everyone should listen to check your music out too. You've been doing this your whole life.
This is about you, Alam. I just wanted to tell them about the two different forms of music from India. It's Carnatic music from southern India and Hindustani music, which is what Alam represents. I just wanted to bring up the contrast.
Yeah, true. People still don't, they don't understand. They think that Indian classical is just all of it, and then it's how actually different Carnatic South Indian is to North Indian Hindustani, and obviously a lot of similarities, but so different at the same time, and contained within the same country. Such rich tradition, such rich music with such a huge universes, right?
Correct.
Parallel universes within the same country. So
yeah, that's true. They both connect universally to people around the world. So yeah, we have a few minutes for Q&A. Please let us know what kind of questions you have. Anything, would you like to say anything in the current societal context, anything that you're doing?
Well, I see some questions here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, it's actually under a separate tab. It's under the Q&A tab. There's 4 questions here.
Okay, let me just... maybe I can read the question. Let me check it out. Okay, so there you go. It says, can I read it out to you, Alam?
Sure.
So the first question is, this is from Michael. I'm about 2.5 years into learning sarod online, and I come from a jam band and jazz type background as a drummer. So I'm used to breaking the rules of schools of music and all that. I so far adhere to the rules of Indian classical music in my quest to learn properly. But I guess my question is regarding the traditional outline of ragas and their respective gharanas. Can one switch the parts around like alab, jor, or just come up with an entirely new progression of parts and movements? Hope this makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, well, if you're playing traditional classical music, then you don't want to switch alap and jor, like jor coming before alap or fast gut coming before slow gut. Gut meaning theme. You don't want to have a fast tempo before slow, and then so much in between. So no, you don't want to switch that up, because then that really changes the classical format. If you do switch it up, then you're really going out and doing something different, and hey, maybe that might sound good. And you can try that. I'm all for exploration and stuff like that. I would probably do something more along those lines in a contemporary vein, and not change the format. Or if I was doing that, I would maybe add a different element musically to it. If I was playing classical traditional, I probably wouldn't start different section wise. What I might do is change the duration of each section that I play, the presentation of it in that way, the formatting, and the length. But I don't think I would take, you know, A and mix it with Z or F and stuff like that. But there could be something interesting that's created in that way. So,
Great. Thank you, Alam.
sure.
Next question is from Sebastian. Beautiful music. Thank you so much. I was wondering, all the music is in the key of C. What if you felt like playing in another key, say F sharp or something else? Do you have different sarods for that, or do you retune, or are you just happy to stay in C?
Yeah, it's not so much about being happy to stay in C. I would actually love to be able to shift keys. Since there's 25 strings and the instrument needs to settle into one key when you're doing it, you can't really shift between them in concert unless you have multiple instruments. If you had a sarod that didn't have sympathetic resonating strings, then you could shift keys more easily. You can always transpose, but the thing that always comes up is you have to choose what strings to have as your resonating strings, notes. And if there's scale changes, you're not necessarily, even if you transpose, it's not necessarily going to bring out the full quality of the instrument. So multiple sarods are needed. Otherwise, you basically choose one key and you play in that. And maybe if you're doing a jugalbandi, a duet with another player that plays in something higher and they can't go lower, then you go up a little bit, they come down a little bit, and you let your instrument settle in that key for a while before you play if you want it to sound good.
Okay. Thank you, Alam. I hope that answered the question, Sebastian. So we have another question from Michael. He says, sorry about asking another question. By the way, this presentation is absolutely terrific, and thank you for putting it. So what's your opinion about musicians learning Indian classical music from different teachers at the same time?
Yeah, this is a controversial question for us musicians that have been doing it for a long time and are rooted in the in the real tradition with the great maestros we've had of past generations. This is the thing. I think curiosity and learning from different gharanas and the styles that they play on their instrument is beneficial because the instrument is to be learned and all the possibilities brought out of that instrument. So seeing innovation by other musicians with different techniques just shows another thing that you can do on your instrument. Saying no to that is closing yourself off and being closed-minded, and I don't see what the point of that is. You're limiting yourself. So I think in that way, it's good, beneficial technique, especially. But raga-wise, gharanas have a very specific way of doing it, and when you start blending gharana versions, something that is a important part of you representing that gharana could possibly change if you start to take on other people's gharanas interpretations of ragas. So what I'd say is, in the past, it's always been thought of as it's a plus to know from one gharana truly and fully understand that, imbibe that, and represent that. And that means you really have the true training from a legitimate source, a legitimate guru teacher. And people that didn't have that would learn a little bit from this, a little bit from that, a little bit from that. And now people are marketing themselves as saying, I don't belong to one, I belong to several, so I can play the best of all three. So it's a very interesting age, so trying to flip it on its head. What I'd say is that know your gharana well before going into something else. But I'm all for supporting, listening, and taking what you can out of other people's styles and having a platform for all of them to be shown. But there's a difference between, what's that thing? Jack of all trades, master of none, something like that. There's something about learning, really, especially when we're talking about instrumental music. I can't comment on tabla or different things like that, but raga-wise, that's what I think. I will not learn from another style, but what I'll do is I'll observe and see what resonates with me and what I like. And if it's something that influences me in a way and I can bring it into my style and my representation of raga, then why not? Because otherwise, like I said, you're cutting yourself off and that's silly to say that you're the best and then nobody else not. So I hope that answered it. It's a pretty big subject.
It is. It's like we first let's learn to make the pizza, and then we learn to make paneer butter masala, and then we can talk about paneer pizza.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we're talking, that's just learning raga wise in traditional classical. If we're talking about doing fusion music or contemporary music, then you really, regardless of mixing ragas, you really need to have a strong foundation and understand that and come from that before you start bringing that into other styles. If someone picks up a sarod or a sitar and says, I want to do fusion music, and they can barely play their instrument and they're playing a terrible version of that, and that is literally what makes confusion music and makes us cringe. So whatever you're doing, know your craft and bring it into whatever other context outside of classical.
Right. Thank you, Alam. There are a couple other questions. I hope we have time for that. So could you shout out any other examples of cross-cultural music that you feel successfully reflect the rich traditions they draw on rather than sounding slapped together? I think you have a Spotify list, right, that you're going to share.
Well, I do. The Spotify list is just my music. I just put all the different things to give people a full picture of what I'm putting out. Only thing I can speak to is right off the top of my head is other musicians that are, like I was just saying before, that are trained in their tradition and are bringing the music out into other forms. Friends of mine, my friends that I've worked with, his name is Aditya Prakash, and he's a Carnatic vocalist who also toured with Pandit Ravi Shankar a little bit when he was a teenager, and he has it's Aditya Prakash Ensemble, I believe is what he's calling it. But if you just look up Aditya Prakash, he makes music that is very jazz influenced. Also, Carnatic style is there. There are a lot of musicians that are doing that. He's coming to mind. He's a good friend of mine. Another person in New York based there is Priya Darshani. Priya Darshani is also trained in Carnatic, but she also does a lot of contemporary style music, and I collaborate with her as well. There's a lot of people in there. I could give it some more thought and let you guys know. Maybe I could give it to World Music Institute to suggest some more, because I'm sure there are plenty more, but answering so many questions, my brain's kind of can't access all the really great musicians out there doing stuff. I'm just citing a few that are around my age that I work with, that came to mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
One other guy. If you're talking about for some reason all these people are Carnatic musicians. It's not intentional, but Sid Sriram, another guy around our age, and also studied with the same guru that I believe that Aditya has, crossing over into a bit of hip hop, R&B, different kind of stuff. His own thing, doing his own thing, but like I was saying, the production and what he's coming from with his background of different styles of music and Carnatic, really creating something that is good. It's artistic, and it's good, and it's something that's not just let's put it together or something like that. So another guy, Sid Sriram, but that's different kind of music. He also, I think, does playback for films in India and with A.R. Rahman and stuff like that. So he's quite got a big following. But anyway, maybe I'll make a list of other people.
That's fine, Alam. Thank you. This is good. And then I think there's one more question. Do you think Indian classical music as an art form is under any threat, given the aging and passing of the previous generation icons who popularized the music and the increased interest in other musical forms, shorter attention spans? This is from APU. Apu? Yeah.
I think there will always be a place for Indian classical music. It's so powerful and transformative, and there's so much rich history in it that there's always going to be the people, whether it's a subgenre or even more of a subgenre. But it's always going to be there. It's always going to be alive. I'm not worried about that. And with our Ali Akbar Khan library, there's always going to be ways for people to study in our style. It's always going to be there. Is it going to keep on changing into more contemporary, more fusion projects? I'm sure it's going to happen like that. But me personally, I'm always doing my classical and doing those kinds of things in there. So I think there'll always be a place for it. But I do think we're going to see a lot more of projects. And only thing that I hope is the projects that come out push the limits, create a new form, and are not just a replication and a reproduction of something that's happened before.
Yeah, so just to add to what Alam said, the raga music is like the earth. Only the landscape will change, but the earth will remain. So it's the foundation on which a lot of music is built. So. And the last is a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this webinar. And I have had paneer curry pizza, and it's very good. Okay, good.
Oh, now I'm hungry. I didn't eat lunch today.
All right, so we actually, I think Gabby, we are.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you both. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Alam, for this great experience and for sharing your music and having us in your home. And thank you all who attended. Please come again. You can always find upcoming events at our website at worldmusicinstitute.org. You can also sign up there for our newsletter so that you're always kept in the loop on what's going on and can become a member and just join this community of which we're so proud to be a part of. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Gabby.
Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you, World Music Institute.
Yes, and we will tomorrow send out the email, which also includes the Spotify list, a link to the school, and also our feedback survey that I again thank you in advance for completing. Thank you. Have a great evening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks, hopefully. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.